What's up, Daily Vapors? Today we're going to show off the Sherman Tank. The Sherman Tank is a new device that's recently hit the market. From what I've read, it's actually been around for a few months now overseas, but it's just starting to kind of make waves over here over the past couple months. The Sherman Tank is a lot like the Modfather tank that I showed off in our more recent tank video. It's a really expensive, really heavy quality machine device. It's nothing like a smock tank or a cheesy kind of low-end tank or whatever. It's one of the kind of more rebuildable, more built around experienced user type of tanks, and I personally love the shit out of this thing. The material that this tank is made out of is pretty much all stainless steel. It's a real heavy guy, just like the Modfather. It's quality, as I said before. The machining in the threading and every little bit of this tank is just butter smooth, and this top fill cap even has like a nice little rubber insulator inside of it, which kind of keeps the top cap from seizing up in there when you refill it, which is really neat. I haven't really seen that in anything before. If I have, it's just been a real cheesy little ring that just gets tore up the first time you close it. So that was a really cool addition that they made on this version. Modfather is a little bit bigger than this guy. This is even though it seems a little big, it's a 28 millimeter atomizer, so it's not as wide and it's also not as tall. The Modfather is kind of like blocky compared to this thing. So and what you see on here now is the tall kit. There are two different heights that this tank comes in, and the kit comes with both. Right now this is the tall kit, which holds about 4 milliliters. The shorty kit, which I'll show you in a little bit, actually comes down to right where this part would just kind of be shifted down to the bottom, and you only really get the space around the outer layer. The build deck is another thing that I'd really like to talk about in this guy too. Build deck actually I think is bigger on this tank than in the Modfather, as well as it has these cool kind of Turk style posts in here. I'll rip these coils out in a minute here so you can see what the actual posts look like up close, but as you can see, I got some big old fat 7-wrap triple core coils inside there, and they're sitting real perfect. They're not close or anything, so when I'm heating them up, they're not getting super hot, they're not making contact anywhere. And the clamp style posts are just a dream, man. They're just super nice. When you're bringing your leads down, it gets a great clamp on the lead without completely ruining what you got going on or creating any shorts or anything like that. And the space for the juice to move up through isn't impeded in any way by where the coil is positioned. So just A++ on the design of this thing. I really enjoy what they did with this rebuild deck. That being said, this isn't a cartomizer deck. There is no removable part to this. So what you see is what you get. But if you're a rebuild guy, I really like this, and I'm sure that if you are, you'll like it too. Before I take these guys out, I've got a digital caliper here just because I wanted to kind of show you guys how much space you have with the rebuild deck. I was looking around online and I couldn't really find any definitive answers to exactly how big it is, so we resorted to this guy, and what I found is that it's a little under 22 millimeters. So as you can see there, caliper's telling me it's just under 22 millimeters, which is pretty substantial for a rebuild deck, especially inside of a tank. Obviously with just a rebuildable RTA, that wouldn't really be too crazy, but with a tank, anyways, it's very impressive. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull these coils out now, so you guys can get a closer look at the build deck. Coils are pretty nasty. Once you get those guys out, that's pretty much what you're looking at right there. Humongous airflow directly underneath the coils. I mean, virtually the entire bottom side of this coil was covered by that, and this thing's massive. But yeah, it's a very vast amount of space that they give you with this guy. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together and show you guys the other kits. When you get the Sherman Tank, you have your two different height options that actually come included with the tank, which is kind of nice considering that at the $95 price point, this is not the cheapest piece of gear for somebody involved with vaping. That being said, this may be one of the last tanks you ever buy if you do make this purchase. From what I can tell, this thing is quality, and it's not gonna break down very quick. You are provided with some spare clamps and some spare screws as well as O-rings, so the more easy to destroy parts are easily replaceable. This is the setup that you get when you initially buy the atomizer. The shorty kit, although it may look like it, doesn't give you any less build space, which I found to be really interesting and really cool. They kind of like reverse engineered their tank with the tall kit to where typically I see the wealth of the juice is on the bottom near the actual space where the juice is flowing up through, or the e-liquid is flowing up and down, in and up through these channels. All of the e-liquid sits on the bottom. With this tank, the way it's designed, you're once you fill up this part, it actually takes a while for you to fill up the rest of the tank because the wealth of the e-liquid is held up at the top of the atomizer above this little mechanism. If you really look down in there, once you put the sleeve on, there's just a really paper thin gap between the chimney itself and the plastic. So when you pour the liquid into the atomizer, you actually see the liquid kind of travels all weird ways and kind of up and around inside of this space because there's such a little space that the liquid gets trapped between the metal and the plastic. It doesn't really cause any issues with juice flow or anything from what I can tell. But it is really interesting the way that they engineered that, in my opinion, just to kind of see how the e-liquid, the wealth of it, sits on the top. Also included in the initial package, this stainless steel drip tip, which is compatible with your Goon atomizer, with a couple other different models, but it's more the chuff style tip. And it's pretty neat, it's pretty nice. My only gripe about it is I can't get over how cool this Delrin tip is. The Delrin is just like perfectly designed for the top of this atomizer. It keeps your lip off of the metal so you don't really get, you know, burns and shit when it gets too hot. Personally, when I start vaping a lot, when I'm doing tricks and stuff like that, my tanks get really, really hot, and this is a great way to get around that. The only downside is then you have to kind of look into how well your mod holds up under the heat, because your mod will end up heating up in your hand before you notice that your tank is hot. This thing will keep it cool 100%. So huge plus with this tip. I love this thing. This thing is kind of cheesy in my opinion. All right, so if it isn't obvious enough, I've kind of run you guys through all of the things that I like about the tank to this point. At this point, I'd like to talk a little bit about the stuff that I don't like so much about this tank, which thankfully isn't much considering the price point. I'm really happy with this thing, but I do have a couple gripes that I wanna talk about, because I hope that Asylum mods will make those changes in the future, because I'd love to see a V3 of the Sherman with just impeccable everything. My first gripe is that when you have this guy together, there is no grip on it. So I found that after a lot of use, when I go to actually take the tank apart to get into the rebuild section rather than to refill, I do have a little bit of trouble. I'll show you right here. Once I lock this guy into place, the seals here and here on the plastic are really tight. This gets very difficult to take apart. And anytime that I try to get a good, try to get leverage on it, even now, I'm having trouble. It kind of gives you trouble between unscrewing the refill cap and unscrewing the build deck portion. So that's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but usually I can work around it. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, definitely some type of grooves or some type of texture to grab onto here to help you kind of differentiate when you're opening the fill cap or the actual rebuild deck. That would be greatly helpful. My second thing is that the airflow doesn't really make sense. You see that on the airflow you have these three pinholes, and they're all pretty good as far as airflow goes. Like out of the box, the thing has some pretty decent airflow. But when you use the AFC, you have this like 3 pinhole setting that kind of matches with that pattern, which makes sense. And then you have this open Cyclops airflow, which opens up the same 3 holes. So I don't really know what the hell they were trying to do there. Maybe they planned on having a Cyclops and they found that when they turned it sideways, this just didn't really do the trick. I'm not really sure what the story is with that, but I would really like to see some kind of differentiation there, because right now the way it is, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. My third con is going to be the price point. The Modfather is about 65 bucks, and it does almost everything this guy does, except the build deck is smaller, and it's, I don't know, it's a little big, it's a little clunky for what it is. But the Modfather doesn't come with the multiple kits. You do have to buy the shorty, the medium, and the tall kit separate, and they're all 10 bucks each. So it's competitive for sure, but I do think that this is maybe just a few bucks more expensive than it should be. 80 bucks, 85 bucks, sure. 95 seems like it's pushing it just a little bit. The plastic is this Ultem, it's not plastic, sorry. This Ultem material is this kind of yellow stuff that you see here, and what this is supposed to do is it's supposed to prevent cracking, from what I was reading, and it does the job. It definitely does that. It prevents the tanks from cracking and everything, but the yellow color is just kind of an eyesore, man. I mean, if you have a yellow and black mod, this thing matches up pretty nice, but otherwise, like, I rock a blue mod, I rock like black white, black red, black blue. This is just kind of a weird combo with it, so not having a different color is kind of confusing. Last gripe about it, which really isn't too big of a deal, it's just kind of something I've noticed, is when you're refilling this guy, when you fill it up to the top and then you close this fill cap is really, really huge, and because of that rubber seal that I pointed out earlier, you have a really tight, almost vacuum seal when you close this. So what you'll see is when you close this guy, when you have liquid in here, as you close it, you'll see the air bubble kind of get forced down because of the pressure as you close it. And what that does is it pushes the liquid up through your coil and down into the overflow. So every time I refill the tank to the top, I do notice that I have to kind of purge out the residual liquid that gets pushed up and over before I start vaping, otherwise you just kind of slurp up some nasty. Once that's cleared out, once you've purged it and everything, it works like a dream, and it continues to work like a dream. I've used this guy for probably about a week straight now, and I'm just absolutely in love. I thought about buying a Mod Father, thought about going back to the Mod Father after this one, but honestly, with all the issues with shipping, and I'm not really sure what's going on with Mod Father right now, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but what I do know is this is the more available of the two. So for 95 bucks, I couldn't resist, and if you want to get your hands on one, check out mohawkvapors.com. I know they have a wealth of them right now, but they go quick. So if you can't get them there, PJ Bros has them. There's a couple other distributors online that carry these guys, but most of them are pre-selling because they're moving so fast. So if you want to get your hands on one, get on it quick, guys. If you have any questions or comments for us, leave them in the comments below. We definitely like to know what you guys think and what you want to see from us next. So if you have something you want us to check out or anything, also drop that in the comments below, and hopefully you'll see it in the next video. So let's check this thing out.